Coming in at number 10, we have Doritos 3D. Now for those of us old enough to remember it, the 90s were a time where 3D was stuck on the end of any product name to make it about twice as cool. So when Doritos brought out Doritos 3D, everybody lost their minds. They were more like air-filled bugles than, normal two-dimensional Doritos. Doritos 3D might not have changed the world, but they got a pretty big cult following of fans when they were about, who would argue over what was the best flavor: jalapeno cheddar, nacho cheese, or zesty ranch. For unknown reasons, Doritos decided to stop production of them in the mid-2000s, which devastated a lot of people, but I heard online that they are still making them in Mexico. Anyone fancy a road trip? Next up at number 9 now, we have Nintendo cereal. Yes, Nintendo used to have their own breakfast cereal. I know most of us are too young to remember it, but I think it's so cool that you will probably miss it as soon as you hear about it. I know I certainly do. Nintendo released it in 1988 and it only lasted for 1 year, but oh what a year that was for Nintendo fans. It was called Nintendo Cereal System. Brilliant. There were 2 bags inside each box. Each one had a different cereal. One was the Super Mario Brothers side and had Super Mario characters, items and stuff that were all fruity flavored. The other side was Zelda and had little berry flavored links, hearts, keys and chests. The tagline was 2 cereals in 1. Wow. And I think that is something that we can all agree on. Wow. Most of us were born after the last box was ever eaten, but I think we will all miss it. Moving on to number 8 now, we have cheese balls. Cheese balls. Can you guess what flavor and shape cheese balls were? That's right. They were little balls of cheese snacks that were around in the early 2000s in North America. Now I personally have never had them before, but everyone who has just raves about how amazing they were. Substitutes have come along, but apparently nothing really comes close to just how cheesy, puffy and bally these cheese balls really were. There was even an official petition on change.org to get Kraft Foods to bring them back. One part of the petition said, and I quote, "I have faith in humanity, but if we can't even agree on scrumptious snacks, then I don't know what we can agree on." Beautiful words there, very nice, all in the name of cheese balls. Next up at number 7 we have cinnamon Tic Tacs. These days you can get fruity Tic Tacs, the classic mint flavored Tic Tacs. You can even get cola Tic Tacs in some places. Tic Tacs is starting to sound weird in my mouth. But some hardcore Tic Tac fans will tell you that there's only one true flavor to rule them all, and that was cinnamon flavor. They were often referred to as winter warmers in the UK because a few of them were said to be all you would need to fight off the cold thanks to their fiery taste. They were first released in the 1970s, but by 2010 they had disappeared everywhere. Presumably people just couldn't handle that kind of heat anymore. Coming in at number 6 now, we have Oreo O's. I won't lie to you guys, I'm not really much of a sweet fan. I always prefer savory stuff, but even I like Oreos. I think we all do. They're just too good. Well, when Oreo realized that everyone loved their snacks so much and that they were often dipping them in milk, they came up with a genius idea, an Oreo breakfast cereal called Oreo O's. It was launched in 1998 and instantly caused millions of kids to start tugging on their parents' sleeves in the supermarket until they got themselves a box. The cereal was discontinued in 2007 and everyone had to get on with their non-Oreo cereal lives, but they do still technically exist. Due to a series of complicated licensing deals and laws, Oreo O's are still being manufactured in South Korea, and I've heard you can actually order them on eBay to wherever you live in the world. I might order a box after this video. Alright, moving on to number 5 now, we have Cadbury Snaps. If you were from outside of the UK, you probably never got to try these, but that's okay. I'm here to make you miss something you never even had before. Who likes Pringles? Who likes chocolate? Well, Cadbury Snaps were basically Pringles made out of chocolate. They were made by British chocolate company Cadbury, who are famous for making quality chocolate, and so when they took their chocolate expertise and applied it to the genius shape of Pringles, everything just made sense. Sadly, they took it away again at some point in the last 10 10 years. I tried to look online, but that's all I could narrow it down to. Some point in the past 10 years. I'm starting to wonder if they ever existed at all. Next up at number 4 now, we have Reese's Bites. I had never had a Reese's cupcake until just a few years ago, but pretty much as soon as I did, people were already saying, oh, you should have tried Reese's Bites. They took the flavor of Reese's cupcakes that everyone loves and turned them into tiny, chocolatey pieces of crunch that made a perfect snack for the movies. I sound like an advert, don't I? For a discontinued product. They stopped making them in the US and they were completely gone by 2007 because they were apparently a choking hazard. So they were either too small for people or people were just eating them too quickly, I guess. They did linger on in Canada for a while before disappearing entirely. Coming in at number 3 now, we have Butterfinger BB. I had never even heard of these until I started making this video, and I don't know how because people seem to love them. They were a small chocolate pellet version of the older and still very popular Butterfinger bar, but they were only around for a short amount of time. They first came out in 1992 and became very popular everywhere thanks to being advertised by none other than The Simpsons. This was very smart because suddenly kids everywhere wanted them. They were discontinued in 2006 and replaced in 2009 with Butterfinger Mini Bites, which BB fans said was not really a fair replacement, and petitions were started online to bring them back again. I don't know what it is with snack fans and petitions. Okay, at number 2 now we have Rice Krispies Treats cereal. This was a Rice Krispies cereal that was released in 1993. I know what some of you guys are thinking. Wait, Rice Krispies already have a breakfast cereal. It's called Rice Krispies. How can they bring out another breakfast cereal? Well, what they did was they took Rice Krispies, okay, they turned it into a snack called Rice Krispies Treats, which was basically a block of Rice Krispies held together with marshmallow. Then they broke those up and put them back into a cereal box to create Rice Krispies Treats cereal. Genius. Honestly, they barely did anything and they created a whole new, very successful product that everyone loved throughout the 90s. But in the end, they were discontinued, leaving only their snack bar version left on sale today. But I guess you can always just go and buy that and then break it up into a bowl and pour milk over it and it will basically be the same as the cereal. Genius. And finally now at number 1 we have Dunkaroos. These were miniature cookies that you dipped in icing. They came in packs of 10 with exactly 1 cubic inch of icing. They came in different shapes such as a hot air balloon or circle with a D on. Now I never had them, but from what I've read online, Americans loved them. They reached peak popularity in the mid-90s and the company even held a nationwide competition to name their new kangaroo mascot. The winner was Duncan. You get it? I see what they did there. They were discontinued in America in 2012, but in 2016, the company that made them, General Mills, actually encouraged Canadians to bring Dunkaroos from Canada to America on their travels because they were still being made in Canada. They called it Smuggleroos. Yes. I think we're done here. Coming in at number 10 now, we have the Wonka bar. There are 2 types of chocolate Wonka bar, the fictional one from the famous Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory movie, and a real one that first appeared in the 70s inspired by the fictional one. The Wonka bar would never obviously live up to how amazing the fictional one apparently tasted, but it gained quite a cult following. Then in 2005, some Wonka bars were packaged with an actual golden ticket, just like in the movies. Now this was to promote the new adaptation with Johnny Depp, but unfortunately the prize was a tour of Nestle's factory and not Willy Wonka's, shattering kids' dreams everywhere. Perhaps that's why sales started to shrink and the Wonka bar was finally discontinued in 2010. Alright, next up at number 9 we have Gator Gum. Many of you guys will have heard of Gatorade, the drink, but were you aware they also used to make gum? Gator Gum was marketed as the gum for active people and it promised to quench people's thirst. Gatorade fans loved it. Finally they had something to chew on when they weren't drinking Gatorade. It came in lemon lime and orange flavour and was around during the late 80s and early 90s. Now the problem was when people get thirsty they usually reach for a glass of something, a liquid, not a piece of gum. That's a shame because Gator Gum is a great name. Coming in at number 8 now we have Bar None. Bar None was released in 1987, described as a cocoa wafer with chocolate filling and a peanut and milk chocolate coating. Now I wasn't around then so I never got to try this, but it sounds amazing. Many other people thought so so too at the time because bar none took off across America. And then in 1992, Hershey's made a big mistake. They changed the formula. If there's one thing chocolate bar lovers can't stand, it's when people mess with the formula. It was split into two different sticks, caramel was added, and the iconic wrapper was redesigned. Fans of the old bar said this was the main reason the bar none became bar non-existent by 1997. Coming in at number 7 now, we have Shark Bites. They were small gummy candies in the shape of a shark, combining two things that all kids love: sugar and dangerous animals. Although I have heard that sharks aren't as bad as the movies have made out. But still, they came in different colours, in red, orange, yellow, purple and white, each one corresponding to a different flavour. Weirdly, the yellow shark tasted like strawberry. There's a sentence I didn't think I would ever say in my life. They were a go-to snack for kids in the 90s, but largely faded out during the new millennium. Now, I did find a few articles saying that they had come back in a few stores in America and could also be bought online, but until they really bite back into the market, they're going to keep their spot on this list. Alright, next up at number 6 now, we have Astro Pops. These were launched in 1963 as cone-shaped lollipops supposed to resemble a space rocket. Now, I'm not saying that making these was rocket science, but the creators were actual rocket scientists. I'm not making this up. They quit their rocket science job to make the Astro Pops and based its 3-color design on the 3 stages of a rocket launch. They came out during a time when the world was space travel obsessed. They came in cherry, passion fruit and pineapple flavor, and later on there was even a banana split and caramel apple flavor. But in 1997 they were actually sued by parents who said their son was injured by the stick of an Astro Pop. The design was then changed and Astro Pop never really got off the launch pad again after that. Sales declined and it was sadly discontinued in 2004. Coming in at number 5 now, we have the Nestle Quick Bar. Nesquik is still one of the most popular breakfast cereals in the world. They dominated the home milkshake market too. They were in kitchen cupboards everywhere in the 90s and Nestle managed to make the leap from breakfast to lunch with a Quick Bar. It was basically chewy chocolate taffy, very soft and tasted like a cross between chocolate and the Nesquik flavor everyone knew. They were eventually discontinued and these days Nestle only make Nesquik bars, which are nothing like Quick Bars, so don't let that cute rabbit fool you. Alright, moving on to number 4 now, we have the Charleston Chew. In 1925, the Charleston dance was all the rage. People couldn't get enough of it, and some clever chocolate makers jumped on the dance wagon and made the Charleston Chew bar. The dance eventually faded out of fashion, but the bar kept growing in popularity. It became a chocolate-covered vanilla taffy bar. Then, in the 1970s, new flavors were brought out, such as strawberry and banana. Now, I've heard the bar does still exist in a few places over 90 years since its invention, but you'd be hard-pressed to find it these days in your local store, and would probably have to order it online. Next up at number 3 now, we have the Desert Bar. This Hershey's chocolate bar was made in the late 1980s, but not for kids. It was made specifically for soldiers. Hershey's made it for the US Army. It was a chocolate bar that could withstand heat up to 140 degrees Fahrenheit or about 60 degrees Celsius without melting at all. 144,000 bars were shipped out to soldiers during the first Gulf War. When the war ended, Hershey's decided to sell their remaining stock to customers back in the US. They gained a pretty big cult following, but when the supply did eventually run out, Hershey's didn't make any more and chocolate bar lovers had to return to the very normal kind that melt in your pocket. Boring. Alright, we're at the number 2 spot now and we have Jumbo Nerds. A lot of you guys watching are big fans of Nerds candy. We've talked about the Nerds candy cereal in our discontinued cereal video, and we're not done talking about the thin fruit flavored candy rock bits just yet. Whew, that sentence. Their appeal has often been in their handy little size, and Jumbo Nerds were exactly the same but bigger. You'd think that just changing the size of some candy wouldn't make it a success, but people started to think, why would I eat normal Nerds when I can eat Jumbo Nerds? They're bigger. In the end though, it seemed that people felt like Nerds were getting a bit too big for their boots and the product was discontinued. Finally now, at number 1, we have the PB Max. The PB stood for peanut butter, and to be honest with you guys, if I could bring back one discontinued item in the whole world, it might be this. Launched by Mars in 1989, PB Max were bars made out of creamy peanut butter and oats, all placed on a whole grain cookie and smothered in rich milk chocolate. Sorry. Now the label suggested you only ever eat 1 piece per serving, but that was never gonna happen. The only way you could stop me from having 10 pieces at once would be if I choked on it. Yeah, I have a bit of a problem with peanut butter. But it seems like a lot of other people did too, as this little bar racked up a whopping $50 million in sales before being discontinued because, wait for it, the Mars family who made the bar didn't like peanut butter. Disgusting. Right, coming in at the number 10 spot now, we have Giggles. Giggles cookies were all the rage in the 1980s. Small cookies that came in either chocolate or vanilla flavor with a very creamy center. Each one came with a giggling face that was supposed to make you laugh. That's what I heard. Don't really know about that one. Maybe I just don't get the joke. But anyway, they apparently tasted great. Although there are other things on the market these days, 80s babies still rave about how good these things were. They're basically edible emojis, and that might be a good marketing idea if they ever make a comeback. Next up at number 9 now, we have Lay's Wavy Chocolate Chips. Now Lay's have come in a lot of different flavors over the years, but one of the most memorable was Wavy Chocolate Chips, described as original potato chips dipped in milk chocolate. It was a limited edition flavor that promised to be both salty and sweet, kind of like having your dessert with your dinner. Now personally, that doesn't really sound like my cup of tea, to be honest. Would you guys eat this? Have you guys eaten this? Are you still okay? At the number 8 spot now, we have Pizza Cruncher Bungers. That's the real name. You guys have loved hearing about old Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle snacks, so here's some more for you. Pizza Cruncher Bungers were pizza flavored corn snacks. These had a short but bright life in the 80s, and if you had any doubt that they were from the 80s, I think this TV advert is all the proof you need. Yeah, they were a much loved snack, but as with a lot of products like this, I think people mainly bought them for the turtles and not really for the taste. Moving on to number 7 now, we have Dutch Mill Donuts. Fans of these donuts swear on donuts' lives that they were, to this day, the best donuts that money could buy. They were all natural, whole wheat donuts that came in plain, chocolate, and cinnamon flavor. They were simple, stripped back donuts that weren't full of additives, and that's why they were so popular. On the one hand, that helped with their success, but on the other hand, they were notorious for going stale very quickly, which meant people had to eat them as quickly as possible. Poor people. That must have been a really hard task. Alright, coming out at the number 6 spot now, we have Fiery Habanero Doritos. It wouldn't be a discontinued video without mentioning some sort of Doritos flavor from the past, would it? Fiery Habanero was released in 2005 and was seasoned with cheese powder, onion, garlic and tomato powder, and of course the hot habanero chili. It seems like they might have been a little bit too spicy for the average chip eater though, because they were discontinued not long after their launch, but they do still have Doritos Dynamiter Fiery Habanero, which are basically the same thing that just like rolled up Doritos. However, real fans will say it's not the same at all. Alright, moving on to number 5 now, we have Cheese Tidbits. These were made by Nabisco and they were huge in the 80s and 90s. Little tubes of cheese cracker glory. Back then, the cheese cracker wars were being fought between Cheese Tidbits, Cheez-Its and Cheese Nips. Yes, that was a real thing. According to Tidbits fans, they were the superior cheese cracker, but something must have gone really wrong because by 2002 they were totally discontinued. Now I know you guys might be like, get over it, there's plenty more cheese crackers out there, but from what I've seen, cheese cracker fans take this thing very seriously. Alright, at number 4 now we have a personal favourite of mine, WWE ice cream bars. Back in the 80s, the most famous wrestling organisation in the world, WWE, released their own ice cream bars. The outer cookie shell had an imprint of your favourite wrestler, then came the vanilla ice cream followed by a thick chocolate flavoured coating. The crowd went wild for them. Even people who didn't really watch wrestling used to absolutely love these things. They were sold for over 20 years, but for some mysterious reason they stopped making them in 2009, and to be honest, no one really knows why. There's actually a Facebook page that is saying bring them back for 1 million likes. They have just over 7,000 likes at the time of filming, so we might be waiting for a while. Moving on to number 3 now, we have Pac-Man Spaghetti. This one needs no explanation, but I'd be out of a job if I didn't do that, so here I go. Little bits of spaghetti in the shape of Pac-Man. They came in 3 flavors, cheese, golden chicken, and mini meatballs. I don't think the mini bit was part of the flavor though. They were popular in the early to mid 1980s, right when Pac-Man mania was at its absolute peak. Now I'm guessing that's why it sold well. I honestly think you could make Pac-Man poison and someone would still eat it. Next up at number 2 we have Choco Bliss. These were also from the 1980s. I'm beginning to think they had all the best food back then. Choco Bliss was basically just a small rectangular slice of chocolate cake marketed for kids. The name wasn't lying either. It was pure chocolate heaven. It's not hard to see why every kid and probably adult loved Choco Bliss a little bit too much. And finally we've reached number 1 now, and we have Screaming Yellow Zonkers. These things looked amazing. They were a popcorn snack that began in the 1960s and lasted into the 2000s. They came in a little black box which always had some sort of ridiculous advice on them, such as how to wash them or how to tell if the box is upside down or not. Weird, but I like it. Their unique style drew in fans, but they stayed for over 30 years because of their sweet taste. Now, as with some other products we've talked about in these videos, I've heard some rumours around that these things might have popped up again in some stores and online, so let me know if you found them anywhere, and send me 10 boxes. 11. Okay, starting off at number 10 we have guacamole Doritos. Now a lot of us buy Doritos to dip in our guacamole dips, but once upon a time you didn't need to do that because there was such a thing as guacamole Doritos. It was genius. This freed people up to dip their guac Dorito into a different kind of dip, maybe, increasing dipping efficiency by 100%. And of course, they tasted amazing, obviously, which is why fans of them were left quite shocked, quite confused, and a little bit hungry when Doritos announced they were discontinuing them in 2006. In the time since then, there's been a lot of cheap knockoff imitations, but they've just angered true guac fans so much that they even started their own Facebook page and petition to get back the real ones. So yeah, you know they're serious. Moving on to number 9 now, we have McDonald's deep fried apple pie. Until 1992, McDonald's made a type of apple pie that became so popular, some people would often go to McDonald's just to eat it. The problem was though, it was deep fried. And during the 90s, McDonald's wanted to start appearing more healthy, so they stopped deep frying their apple pies and started baking them instead. Now this upset a lot of apple pie fans who thought the new ones just weren't the same. Deep fried is just always better, I guess. Even a deep fried version of me would probably be better. Weird. Next up at number 8 we have the salsa con queso Cheeto. Everyone knows that Cheetos do cheese flavour really well. They've got that whole thing down, but they also do spicy quite well as well. But in 2012 they released a salsa con queso flavour that was meant to give fans the experience of dipping Cheetos in melted cheese and chili pepper, but without any of the horrible sticky mess on your fingers afterwards. Then, out of nowhere, they just vanished. Like, completely. Even in the short time that they had existed, they had gained a pretty large fan base who even started an online petition to get them back. But as the old saying goes, the Cheetos company works in mysterious ways, and salsa con queso Cheetos were never seen again. Okay, we're at number 7 now, and we have pudding pops. In the 1980s, General Foods were looking for a new way to make their Jell-O product exciting again, especially to younger kids. The result? Jell-O pudding frozen fudge pops, otherwise known as pudding pops. American kids went wild for them and they became a family favourite, selling $300 million worth of pudding pops in just 1 year. But despite their huge success, they weren't actually making that much money off them. General Foods were not in the frozen foods business particularly, so it was costing them much more money and effort than they really wanted. Because of all of this, despite them still being popular throughout the 90s, pudding pops popped out of existence and became a good example of how a product can be popular but still ends up being discontinued. Moving on to number 6 now, we have Kellogg's Yogos. This snack was described as yogurt covered bits. Yeah, bits. Nobody really knows what the bits were, but they tasted pretty good, so that's all that matters, right? They came in a number of different flavours with names such as Strawberry Slam, Berry Banana, and Island Explosion, which, that last one, it really gives no clue about what it tastes like, does it? They claim to give a kid 100% of their daily calcium intake, but even if that was true, there was also a lot of concerns about the amount of sugar in them. Between that and the falling sales, Kellogg's stopped making Yogos, leaving a huge gap in the market for someone else to make nice, tasty little bits. Okay, next up at number 5 now, we have Hershey's S'mores Bars. Roasting s'mores over a campfire is a popular tradition in North America that has begun to spread all over the world. In 2003, someone at Hershey's had the genius idea of taking the original format of marshmallow and chocolate between 2 graham crackers and turning it into a chocolate bar version. Suddenly, people didn't have to wait months for the next campfire, they could just pick up a s'mores bar pretty much anywhere and they were a huge success. But even the initial success couldn't couldn't save the bar, and Hershey's did end up throwing them all into the campfire forever eventually. Not literally, of course, I think. Alright, we're at number 4 now, and what do we have? We have Swiss cheese crackers. These crackers were immensely popular in the 80s in America, which may have even surprised Nabisco, the company who made them, because they were basically just crackers in the shape of Swiss cheese slices. Now, they were around a bit before my time, so I can only tell you what others online have said about them. One fan said they had just the right amount of cheese, crunch and texture, and that many people are sad about the loss of this holy food. Holy. I see what you did there. Okay, coming in at the number 3 spot now, we have Magic Middles. I never had the chance to try these, but from what I've heard, they were pretty amazing. They were around in the late 1980s, and I've heard they were a soft cookie surrounding a fudge, chocolate, or peanut creamy center. They essentially took the good idea of chocolate chip cookies and thought, well, why don't we just make a cookie filled with chocolate? Yeah? Sounds pretty good. Everyone thought it was a genius idea. Everyone ate far too many of them by the sounds of it, but just like a lot of items on our list, Magic Middles mysteriously melted into memories. Rhyming's fun. Next up at the number 2 spot, we have Taco Bell Lunchables. Now, if you're from the UK, like me, you probably didn't grow up having Taco Bell, but they're basically the top dogs when it comes to Mexican fast food. In the late 90s, they released Taco Bell Lunchables in North America, which let kids bring a DIY tacos and nachos kit to school with them. It also came with a miniature Capri Sun, which, as you might know, was the best kids drink in the whole world back then. They were discontinued at a time when people were trying to make sure kids ate more healthily, especially at school, and suddenly this DIY fast food kit didn't seem so appealing. But does that mean we don't want them back? Of course not. I want one right now. And finally, now at number 1, we have something that I should have put in the last video. Can't believe I forgot about it. PB Crisps. The PB stood for peanut butter, and if you like peanut butter, you would have loved these. They were made out of a graham cookie on the outside with a sweet peanut butter cream on the inside, all in the shape of a peanut, obviously. They were first produced by Planters in 1992, but lasted for just 3 years. Now that might seem like a short amount of time, but it was apparently enough for people to get absolutely obsessed with them. Now, there are people signing petitions to bring them back who never actually even tasted them. I'm probably going to be one of those people. They sound amazing. Starting off at number 10 now, we have Tato Skins. Salt fans in the late 90s went wild for Keebler's Tato Skins. They were crispy chips that weren't ashamed to let you know where they came from. Potatoes. Firstly, there was the name, obviously, but each one even looked like a little potato slice. One side was dark and the other side was light. This honestly sounds like my dream snack, honestly. I want a cheddar and bacon Tato skin. I really do. I want them now. And yes, before you say it, I'm aware that you can get a similar thing these days in the form of TGI Fridays potato skin snack chips, but I've only got room for one Tato Skins in my heart and stomach. Next up at number 9, we have Campinos. This one came from the UK, but I'm sure that everyone is gonna miss them when they hear all about them. They were a hard candy that were made using a combination of yogurt or yogurt, whatever, depending on your pronunciation. They have been around since 1966 in various forms, but by 2000, it started to feel like their formula had been perfected because suddenly they were everywhere. I remember it became quite a common sight in the UK to see a bowl of strawberry or summer fruit Campinos laid out in a little bowl for guests. But the gods of discontinued food items eventually grew tired of them and took them away for good. Moving on to number 8 now, we have Nesquik cereal. Now, before any of our non-American viewers freak out, I know Nesquik cereal is available in a lot of other places, but spare a thought for our many American viewers watching this who have not been able to buy this stuff in years. That's right, Nesquik cereal was released in America as soon as it was invented in 1999. Fans of it quickly fell in love with the 1 centimeter spheres of pure chocolatey goodness and defended it in the Great Chocolate Wars with Cocoa Puffs. Whose side were you on? Then in 2012, Nesquik pulled their cereal from every single US store. Now Americans have to either just miss it and get over it, or use those, those strange import companies online to bring it into the country for them like it's some sort of chocolate drug. Alright, next up at number 7, we have Easy Squirt ketchup. What colour is ketchup? Red, isn't it? Obviously. But some of us remember a time when ketchup could be blue, green, pink, orange and teal thanks to Heinz Company's Easy Squirt ketchup. They launched in 2000 and sold more than 25 million bottles during their first 3 years. Good times. But eventually people started to miss the good old red ketchup, the classic one. Look at it. Being all red, also good times. Sales of Easy Squirt ketchup began to fall and the product was stopped altogether in 2006. Moving on to number 6 now, we have Flamin' Hot Cheetos Asteroids. Most people know Cheetos in their little twiglet shape in normal packets, but there was once a time when everyone could get Cheetos in a ball form called Asteroids from a packet that looked like it contained baby wipes, and they were amazing, quite frankly. Fans loved the heat of these, but for some of them it just wasn't enough. Well, luckily there was also extra hot Flamin' Hot Cheeto Asteroids. Yeah, that was a real name. I can only presume that they killed off all their fans because Asteroids eventually crashed and burned. Okay, coming in at number 5 now, we have Koala Yummies. If you talk to any 80s or 90s kid from the US, they won't be a kid anymore, but they will probably remember Koala Yummies. They were a Japanese product, so it was a bit hard to figure out what they were from the Japanese packaged versions, but one bite told you all you needed to know. They were little bite-sized cookies filled with gooey chocolate fudge. Now if that sounds suspiciously unhealthy for a kid's food, yeah, you're right, it wasn't that healthy. But this wasn't a time of healthy eating for kids. This was the 90s. This was a time for gooey chocolate fudge filled cookies in the shape of koala bears. A good time. Next up at number 4 we have Altoids Sours. This was one of the most requested items that I missed out in the previous 2 videos. Altoids are famous for making very minty mints, but perhaps their most popular product was Altoids Sours. Very hard, very sour candies in round tins that were introduced in 2002. Flavours included raspberry, citrus, apple, tangerine and mango, and on Valentine's Day 2005 they even released passion fruit sours, because nothing says I love you more than a face like this. Eventually I think people got tired of looking like that and the product was widely discontinued. Oh, sour. Okay, coming in at number 3 now, we have the McDLT. This was a McDonald's burger that is sorely missed by some people, not because of the actual burger, but because of the packaging. It was served in conjoined containers. One half contained the burger and bottom bun, while the other contained the lettuce, tomato, cheese, pickles and sauces on the top bun. Now this was to stop the burger heating up the veggies and the veggies from cooling down the burger, and also keep all the grease from making everything soggy. It was a pretty clever idea, and if it was around today, it would also work for veggie burgers too, but McDonald's sadly stopped doing them in 1991 as they tried to not waste as much packaging. Next up at number 2 we have Pokemon cereal. That's right, for all you young Pokemon fans watching this, have you ever wanted to pour milk all over your favourite Pokemon and eat them with a spoon? Me too. Luckily, I'm old enough to remember Pokemon Toasted Oat cereal with marshmallow bits. The marshmallow bits were in the shape of Pikachu, Poliwhirl, Oddish and Ditto. They were eventually stopped, presumably because kids were more likely to catch diabetes than Pokemon from it. I know you can't actually catch diabetes, but I really wanted that joke to work. I also heard the Ditto ones would transform in your stomach into another Pokemon, although now that I'm an adult, I'm starting to think they were lying to me about that one. And finally now, we've reached number 1 and we have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Pies. If you like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you would have gone crazy for these things. They were small, green glazed pie crusts filled with vanilla pudding cream inside. They were apparently really tasty and a lot of people want them back, even if they weren't huge Ninja Turtle fans. But I have just one question though. Look at these. Why are they the exact same shade of green as the shell of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? I really hope those are actually pies and people weren't eating tiny baked Ninja Turtles. Ugh. Their tagline of straight from the sewers to you is now sounding a little bit suspicious. Starting off at number 10 now, we have Big Stuff Oreo. These things were first released in 1984 and there's not really much to say about them, to be honest, other than they were like normal Oreos but massive. If you want to talk numbers, they were actually 10 times the size of a normal Oreo. They were sold in packs of 10 and each one contained 316 calories. That's about 14% of an adult's entirely calorie intake for the day. They were discontinued in 1991, presumably because the normal human-sized Oreos sold a lot better. At number 9 now we have Black Pepper Jack Doritos. Doritos have released a lot of different flavors over the years, but Black Pepper Jack might be one of the most missed. It was released back in 2004 and was said to taste surprisingly like pepper jack cheese. I say surprisingly because most things that say they taste like a certain cheese usually don't, but apparently these were different. The black pepper kick wasn't as strong, but hey, nobody cared. Nobody out there is eating Doritos because of their taste accuracy, let's be real. We eat them because they put some sort of addictive substance in there, haven't they? I don't know what it is. At number 8 now, we have Munchums. Do we have any savory fans watching this? Yeah? Any salt lovers? Well, you would have loved these, or you might even remember them. They were produced by the famous Keebler company, and their flavors included sour cream, onion, and ranch. Now obviously, the idea was for dipping them in some other sort of sauce, but they held up pretty well by themselves. I did also find a Facebook group about them, but they only have 39 likes, and the most recent post was about 4 years ago saying, "Aylin, what the f this?" So yeah, I don't think they'll be making a comeback anytime soon. Alright, moving on to number 7 now. We have Ben & Jerry's Tennessee Mud Flavor. For just 1 year, from 1988 to 1989, Ben & Jerry's fans could enjoy a scoop of Tennessee Mud Flavor. It was coffee ice cream with amaretto, Jack Daniel's Tennessee whiskey, and roasted slivered almonds. A lot of people loved it, but apparently not enough for it to not be sent to the Ben & Jerry's flavor graveyard. I didn't make that up. That's actually a real place on their website, by the way. This one has its own gravestone that reads, "The bottle is empty, the cup and the glass, mud with Jack Daniels was not meant to last." Ah. Next up at the number 6 spot, we have pancakes and sausage on a stick with chocolate chips. Yeah, you heard me correctly. I did not mess that one up. In 2006, the Jimmy Dean Company released these things. Now I don't know if they were drunk, desperate, or just had a really weird craving. It might have been all three. Some people did like these, emphasis on the some. It's one of the weirdest combinations I think I've ever heard of, but to be honest, I do kind of want to try one to see what it tasted like, and then maybe spit it out straight away. Coming in at the number 5 spot now, we have the 7-Up bar. Now despite its name, 7-Up bar was not related to the famous drink in any way at all. This chocolate bar was first produced in the 1930s and featured 7 pillows of chocolate. Each one contained a different flavour. They would alternate between Brazil nut, buttercream, butterscotch, caramel, cherry, coconut, fudge, mint, nougat, and orange. It was a great idea, but sadly the cost of making these things ended up being way too much, and they were eventually discontinued in 1979. Moving on to number 4 now, we have Pringles Chili Limon. I don't even know if that's the right pronunciation, but right now I bet a lot of you guys are thinking, no, wait, I only saw these things in the store like last year. Well, that's apparently when they were discontinued. It was a very recent discontinuation. This flavour was a very unique Pringles flavour. Personally, I didn't really like it too much, but I know a lot of people did. It had a real cult following who loved its hot and sweet flavour. On the front of it, it said limited time only, so we always knew it was never going to last, but I'm sure if enough fans kick up a fuss, it could be back this time next year. Maybe not. I don't know. Next up at number 3, we're going back to Oreos now for Oreo. That was its real name. These were normal sized Oreos, but the cream inside was chocolate flavored. It's kind of weird because they called it Oreos to be all like, oh no, we made this by accident. We didn't mean to make it chocolate flavored. Whoops. But then they made millions of them and shipped them out for years all over the world. The uh-oh part didn't really make sense then, but that wasn't the point, obviously. People love them for their nice chocolate twist. Sadly, although their packaging promised the great tasting goof was here to stay, they were eventually discontinued. Alright, coming in at number 2 now, we have Turtles Pizza. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles have made a little bit of a resurgence in popularity in recent years, but back in the early 90s, Turtle Mania was so huge it ended up creating products like this. Turtles Pizza was made by McCain's, who realised that they could turn the Turtles' love of pizza in the TV show into a real life product. It worked for a while, but they might have gone a little bit too far when they released pizza mini slices, which were covered in a green apple flavoured dust. Let's not even go there. Alright guys, we've reached the number 1 spot now, and we have Chester's Cheese Doritos. In 1995, two things came together that should have never come together: Doritos and Cheetos. They had a child together called Chester's Cheese Doritos. It was basically a tortilla chip in the shape of a Dorito, but with the flavor of a Cheeto. It sounds incredible, doesn't it? But apparently didn't actually sell too well, and the companies ended up parting ways and they stopped making it. Some say it was actually just a bit too cheesy. I've actually heard that online. Is that even possible though? We may never know. Alright, starting off at number 10 now, we have Dairy Lunchables hot dogs. Anyone from the UK watching this over a certain age will remember these. Dairy still make little Lunchable packs where you stack together your own snacks, but for some reason they stopped doing the hot dog variety. They weren't the best tasting hot dogs, they weren't the biggest, the sauce packet was kinda hard to open if I'm honest, but hey, you got a free drink with every single pack and a tiny little hot dog. Everyone loved them, except vegetarians and any people over the age of 12 I guess. And it ended up being discontinued from poor sales, but I loved it. Next up at number 9 we have the Wonder Ball. This was sold by Nestle in the US. For those of you outside of the US, it was basically like a little Kinder Egg. It was the ultimate 90s kid snack in America. A ball made up of an outer milk chocolate shell and with tiny figurines inside, usually Disney themed. They were a huge success until 1997 when campaigners successfully got the Wonder Ball banned because they said it was a choking hazard. The Wonder Ball did make a brief revival in 2000 where they swapped the toy for a themed candy like Pokemon or Disney, but it seems like the whole urban legend of a kid choking to death on a toy never left the Wonder Ball alone and it was discontinued again. Moving on to number 8 now, we have Calippo Shots. Okay, I put this on the list for two reasons. Firstly, so many of our Australian viewers wanted this on the list, and secondly, I know it's not discontinued everywhere, so I want you guys to let our desperate Australian friends know where you can still get them. For the rest of you who never heard of them, Calippo Shots are tiny frozen pellets that came in flavors like strawberry and lemon, lemon and cola, lemon and lime. Yeah, I think they really like lemon. If you live in one of the lucky countries that still gets these, let me know down below. At the number 7 spot now, we have Bugs 2000. Some of you guys watching this might be a bit too young to remember, but at the end of 1999, a lot of people were quite worried that computers would get the dreaded Y2K virus on the very first day of 2000. Some people thought it would be the end of the world. Some other people made Bugs 2000, the fruit flavored gummy snack. When life gives you computer viruses, make gummies. If you take a look at the top right of the packaging, you can even see their claim that they bite back. Spelt like that. Get it? Bite. Love it. Great pun. Obviously they didn't last too long, but I'm personally looking forward to Bugs 3000 at the end of this millennium. Coming in at number 6 now, we have Space Dust Sizzling Candy. This one is a shout out to the 1970s when the world was still riding high from all the space missions over the past decade. General Foods cashed in on this and made an addictive powder that's totally legal. It was essentially Pop Rocks ground up into a fine powder, and it came in flavors like cherry, orange and watermelon. Unfortunately, the name sounded a little bit too similar to the very much illegal Angel Dust, and there was also a rumor going around for a while that a kid died while drinking pop with it, so this is sadly something that only 70s kids will remember. Next up at number 5 we have Vampire Secret Ice Pops. These black cherry ice pops had a red gooey center that was supposed to represent blood, but that didn't gross out millions of kids who devoured them in the early 90s. Now remember guys, this is before vampires were cool again, so what made them so popular? Well, it turns out they had an insanely high sugar content. That's why kids would just feast on them so much, and it's also the reason the boring grown-ups got them banned. Can't we all just be fat and eat vampire ice pops? What's wrong with that? Alright, we've reached the number 4 spot now, and we have Cheetos Paws. Now I'm sure you've all heard of Cheetos. I'm sure a lot of you have tried them. But if you never got to experience Cheeto Paws before they were discontinued, just imagine a regular Cheeto in the shape of a cheetah paw. That's pretty much it. Now but for real though, these ones had great flavour and they also didn't get stuck in your teeth. Huge bonus for Cheeto lovers. They arrived in the 90s and they also died in the 90s. Cheetos never gave us a real reason as to why they discontinued them, and I personally feel a little bit cheated. Alright, at the number 3 spot now, we have Jolly Rancher. These sweet, tangy candies were first introduced in 1949, so they really have been around the block. This was an all-American favourite for many years. Many people remember them for just how many flavours there actually were. There was watermelon, grape, apple, and fire sticks. Then came cherry, orange, and tangerine, lemon, peach, and sour apple. And then blue raspberry replaced lemon, and the whole thing was starting to sound like a soap opera. They've been sold to a lot of different companies over the years, and discontinued more times than I can even count, but I have heard you can still get some on Amazon when they're not totally sold out. At the number 2 spot now we have Crunch Taters. Crunch Taters, as you might expect, were crunchy potato chips. All the cool kids were eating them in the late 80s to mid 90s. They came in flavors like Cajun, barbecue, and hoppin' jalapeno. Great name. There are currently so many petitions online where people are asking for them to come back, but a lot of them also said that they ate 5 bags of the stuff every single day when they were kids, not even adults. So I don't know, maybe it's a good idea that Crunch Taters are a thing of the past. And finally now, at the number 1 spot, we have Cadbury Snaps. If you're from the UK, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. If you aren't, imagine Pringles made out of chocolate. You're probably thinking, wow, someone should actually invent that. Well, they did. They were called Cadbury Snaps, and now they're sadly gone. They came in flavors like mint, orange, hazelnut, and classic milk chocolate. Now, I've heard some people say you can still get them in some places in the UK, but for now, you'll just have to cover your Pringles with chocolate and try not to gag. Coming out at number 10 now, we have Push Pops. These things were huge in the early 90s. You pushed them up to get the fruit candy and then pushed them down again to save them for later. They stayed fresh for the whole day, which made them the perfect snack for people looking to get their sugar fix throughout the day. The bright packaging and advertising made it quite clear they were being aimed at kids, and many people said that having them as children was quite a messy experience. Now, they have been gone for a while now, but can still be found in select online stores. Moving on to number 9, we have Quaker Oats Dinosaur Eggs Oatmeal. Yes, that name is almost as much of a mouthful as oatmeal itself. The idea was that once you put the oatmeal in the microwave, the little eggs nestled inside will begin to hatch into actual tiny little dinosaurs. Well, not actual dinosaurs, but you know what I mean, they look like them. Now, I personally never got to try this, and I'm gutted because I love dinosaurs. This would have had me jumping out of bed every single morning. They were released in 1998, but were eventually taken off the shelves. Although they've been discontinued in stores, a limited amount is being sold on Quaker's own website, so if you like the sound of this, go and check it out. Alright, coming in at the number 8 spot now, we have pudding roll-ups. In the 80s, fruit roll-ups and pudding snacks of any kind were hugely popular. That's why some genius over at the Betty Crocker Company came up with pudding roll-ups, a sort of twisted hybrid combination of the two, and kids, they love them. They came in 3 flavors: butterscotch, chocolate fudge, and milk chocolate. Now, just like normal roll-ups, you rolled these out to get yourself a nice, flat, chocolatey pudding that you could just then stuff straight into your mouth. Because who has time for a spoon, right? I don't have time for a spoon. Moving on to number 7 now, we have Snackmate Cheese. This was squirty cheese in a can, first released in 1968 and popular for about 10 years across America. Their taglines included cheese that goes anywhere and it's uncanny, meaning it's almost like having real cheese, except probably not by the looks of this stuff. Either way, many adults have fond memories of having a can of this around the house that was whipped out and squirted on food that was just missing that artificial cheesy flavour. I'm joking, but I do really actually want to try this. How bad is that? Next up at the number 6 spot now, we have chickadees. These things were massively popular across Southeast Asia in the 80s and 90s. Kids everywhere from Australia to the Philippines enjoyed possibly the only chicken flavoured snack on the market at that time. Now, I've heard they tasted amazing. I don't know if they use real chicken flavouring though. Either way, each bag also came with a random prize ranging from stickers to a small plastic toy. Chickadees, everyone's a winner. I sound like I'm working for a company that's been gone for like 20 years. Moving on to number 5 now, we have Fruit Corners Fruit Bars. These bars from the 1980s tried to please both kids and their parents alike. Candy bars that were made with real fruit. They were made by General Mills, who hoped they would be filling up school lunchboxes all across America. The really weird thing was, the TV advert for them called them ugly and showed kids shocking their parents and teachers with just how ugly the bars were. I mean, is that cool? I've never found ugly fruit bars cool. Perhaps that's why they were discontinued. Or maybe I'm just not cool. Moving on to the number 4 spot now, we have O'Boyces. In the late 80s, if you wanted to overdose on pure salt, O'Boyces was the way to do it. They were potato chips made by Keebler. Now, from our previous videos, you guys might know Keebler as the company who made sweet treats such as Magic Middles. This was them trying to enter the salty snack market. Although they were popular, it sounds like they had enough salt in them to kill a horse. But you know what it's like? Once you pop, you just can't stop. but with these things you just kind of stop when your lips go numb. Next up at the number 3 spot now, we have oatmeal swirlers. In the 90s, General Mills released their bowl of oatmeal swirlers. The idea was quite simple with this one. How do you get kids to eat healthy oatmeal in the morning? You cover it in a thick swirl of tasty but probably quite unhealthy red jam. Well, it worked. It sold really well, and part of the appeal seemed to be their advert showing how you could do kind of cool drawings with the jam or even play noughts and crosses with your friend. I've heard that in reality the best you could do was just an ugly smiley face. And next up at number 2 now, we have peanut butter boppers. You can't go wrong with a bit of peanut butter, can you? That's what Nature Valley were thinking when they released these bars in the mid 80s. They were quite literally tiny peanut butter logs. They were made by rolling together peanut butter with oats, Rice Krispies and chocolate chips. Basically, they were so peanutty that if you ever got attacked by someone with a peanut allergy, your best form of defense would be to hit them with a peanut butter bopper. What a mouthful. There were 4 other types of flavors available: fudge chip, honey crisp, cookie crunch and fudge graham. And I think I might actually name my first son Fudge Graham. And finally at number 1 now, we have French frauds. You guys have heard of French fries. Well, in the 60s you could also get French frauds courtesy of Pillsbury. They looked like French fries or onion rings, but were marketed as chip snacks. Honestly, they look pretty tasty, but what they might be remembered for was their weird packaging. It had advice like, give French frauds as a tip to waiters, or hold a contest to see who can make the most noise while eating French frauds. Presumably the person who came up with these has never met a single other human being before, because that's the weirdest idea of fun ever. Also guys, please don't ever give a chip to a waiter as a tip. You will not be allowed back.
Making bacon at number 10. We have the Jack in the Box Bacon Shake. At a whopping 1,100 calories per shake, the Jack in the Box Bacon Shake is pretty much a main course and a dessert all rolled into one. In a previous episode we talked about a Burger King bacon ice cream sundae, but Jack in the Box Shake went the whole hog, so to speak, with its full flavour. Although actually no pig flesh was mixed into the drink, it was all just bacon flavoured syrup. To me it actually still sounds really gross. This was introduced for a promotional period in 2012 but discontinued a few months later. Coming into number 9 we have the Twix McFlurry. I don't know what the point is in getting attached to a McFlurry flavour. They're always switched in and out faster than a strobe light at a rave, and I'm just left heartbroken every time. For me, the Twix McFlurry is perfection. Ice cream, chocolate, biscuit, caramel, yum. Oh, alas though, I haven't seen it on the menu since 2015 and honey wants me a Twix. Coming into number 8 we have the Burger King meatloaf sandwich. Back in 1993, Burger King were trialing a classier experience. The meatloaf sandwich was said to be delicious and emerged when the King was trialing table service. If you wanted, you could have the meatloaf sandwich with a side of jacket potato, which almost actually sounds classy. Sadly, this beaut was taken away in the mid-90s. Coming into number 7 we have Taco Bell Enchiritos. The disappearance of the Enchirito in 2013 sparked a whole article questioning its disappearance from the Huffington Post. Literally, a whole article dedicated to this one menu item. This cross between an enchilada and a burrito, topped with all of the cheese, was served in a little tin tray. People loved the tin tray. It first disappeared in 1993, but then it came back in 1999, although it was never as good as the hearty tin tray offering. Sadly, the tin tray was gone, as were the olives. After 2013, it hasn't been seen again. This is probably due to the emergence of the smothered burrito. Oh! Get me some of this sweet dipping action at number 6. We have the Pizza Hut Big Dippers. So this was a little bit like the Bigfoot from the previous episode, but the slices were rectangle, not square, making them perfect finger food and great for dipping into the little dips provided. This kind of pizza experience would also make me feel a lot better about life because the slices are so tiny that really I could trick myself into not feeling guilty. Sadly, the Big Dipper was last seen somewhere in 2016. I like to think that all of the celebrities celebrities taken away from us last year are enjoying a big dipper party in heaven somewhere, with like David Bowie passing a slice of veggie delight to Carrie Fisher. Dipping. From heaven to hell, we have the buffalo pulled pork burger from KFC. It actually looked really sad. It's almost like a cruel trick from Hades himself. I love getting way too overdramatic about food, as you can tell, by the way. Hades. Okay, but what were KFC actually thinking when they deviated from chicken? In Australia, a barbecue pulled pork burger was introduced, but it was nothing like it was advertised. The advertisements made it look like the bun was going to be filled with all kinds of glorious pulled pork, but no, it was barely there. The promotional period is up for the bun, and I think for a lot of people it's good riddance, although some people are sad and do miss them. To these people I say there are plenty of better places for pulled pork than Kentucky Fried Chicken. It was almost a mistake from the very beginning. Coming into number 4, we have Taco Bell Lunchables. 20 years ago, you used to be able to get Taco Bell Lunchables. Lunchables with like little taco shells and cheese, which for me sounds pretty great. They also kind of came with a Capri Sun, which is always fun. The commercial for it was all kinds of lols too. Sadly, while many Lunchables do exist on the market, the golden era is over, so goodbye Taco Bell offering. Coming into number 3, we have the chili cheese burrito from Taco Bell. Chili cheese. Yes. I've always really felt like there's a reason that cheese rhymes with yes please, just because when cheese is on the menu, the answer is always yes please. Taco Bell used to have a chili cheese burrito, and these days it bounces in and out of the menu like nobody's business. Obviously, there is a change.org petition to bring these babies back. I'm thinking that maybe it's more the frustration of not knowing where you stand with this burrito. One day it's here, the next day it's not. For me, it's confusing. More yes please to cheese at number 2, we have Burger King's Cheesemas. In Europe in 2013, the festive gods at Burger King rolled out Cheesemas to its humble disciples in Europe. They had the Santa chicken sandwich, which featured breaded chicken breast, steakhouse sauce, Edam, Massam cheese slices, and the usual salad. The Santa Claus burger was the same thing, but with a beef patty. In the UK, we got Emmental cheese bites with a festive red berry sauce, and I am for one thinking bring back the cheese. Yes. Also bring back the nice red berry sauce. For me, every day is Cheesemas. Feast your eyes on this baby at number 1. We have the Red Samurai Burger from Burger King. Okay, I may have moaned about the black burger, but I think I'm actually coming around to novelty burgers now that I've seen this vision in red. Burger in red. Ow. In Japanese Burger King stores, the Red Samurai Burger was released for a limited time in 2015. It was your usual burger, but with a tomato red bun, red cheese, and hot sauce. So yeah, I think I'd take it. What about you guys?
Okay, coming in at the number 10 spot, we have Cajun Spice Ruffles. Ruffles are a very popular brand of chips. We might have some big fans of them watching right now. Well, back in the late 80s, they had Cajun Spice flavor. I was going to tell you guys what they were like, but then I found the original 1987 TV commercial, which featured famous Louisiana cooking show host Justin Wilson, and he does a better version than I ever could. Next up at number 9 now, we have Minute Fudge. There are a lot of people out there who love fudge. There's also a lot of people out there who don't like waiting 5 minutes for things. Well, 4-minute fudge from Kellogg's made those people very happy in the late 70s. The packaging said it had a homemade taste and that it was easy and fun to make. At first, this sold very well. The company was even bought by Kellogg's, but eventually it all got kind of fudged up when customers started complaining it was just a sludgy mess. It sometimes took 20 minutes to make, and one customer even said the best thing about it is the recyclable packaging. Savage. But we miss it. Moving on to number 8, we have Corkers. Full name, Corkers Corn Twists. It first became available in 1968, and these days twisty shaped chips are common, but these were the real OGs. The advert said that fans of the chip all agreed that the only way to unwind at the end of the day was to get all twisted up in a crunchy box of Corkers corn snacks. I'm sure they tasted great, but if I was feeling stressed after a long day, I don't think a packet of Corkers corn twist is gonna fix that, but what do I know. Next up at number 7 now, we have Snick Snacks. Before Kit Kat and class action lawsuits, Snick Snacks were the snappable chocolate bar of the 1970s. They were made by Mars as the competitor to Hershey's Kit Kats, but they were literally the exact same. From the chocolate to the wafers, even the name was pretty much a rip-off. They were fairly popular for a while, but Kit Kats had the last laugh as they're still around, and Snick Snacks are in this video. What an awful place to be in this video. Alright, at the number 6 spot now, now, we have sour cream and onion Doritos. Most of us associate sour cream and onion flavored chips with Pringles, but back in the 70s, Doritos were in that game too. It's been a long time since they were discontinued. If you want any proof of how old these are, then look no further than this TV ad for them. I couldn't believe it.
Sour cream and onion flavored Doritos brand tortilla chips.
And now I want them. Yeah, I don't care about Pringles. I want mine in a triangle shape. Coming in at number 5 now, we have Prism Bars. Prism Bars were released in 1986 by Hershey's. They were only around for one single year, but people still remember them fondly as a quintessential 80s chocolate snack. The closest thing you can compare them to today is M&M's. They were that kind of consistency and flavor, but these things never made it out to the 80s. Even the logo kind of looks like an 80s tracksuit. Alright, next up at number 4 now, we have Buenos Tortilla Chips. From 1981 to 1983, Buenos was what you bought if you wanted to fill your face with tortilla chips. They came in traditional and nacho cheese flavors. I know that having only 2 flavors might shock some of you guys, but this was the 80s, I don't know what to tell you. Now, anyone who has heard any Spanish word in their life will know that bueno means good. But just in case you didn't know that, Nabisco kindly put bueno means good on their packaging. Thanks for that. Good. Bueno. Moving on to number 3 now, we have Mr. Bone. This spooky candy was around in the 70s and was packaged in tiny little coffins. Inside each one was Mr. Bones the skeleton, made up of tiny candy pieces. Sounds kinda weird when I put it like that. Anyway, the idea was that you were supposed to assemble Mr. Bones, but apparently no single coffin came with all the right bits you needed. So you'd have to buy lots of different coffins if you wanted to complete Mr. Bones. I see what they did there. Clever. Alright, moving on to the number 2 spot now, we have Doodads. These things had a very healthy shelf life and were around from the late 60s all the way up to the 90s. They were a box of savory mix by Nabisco. Inside there were 5 different items: toasted peanuts, pretzels, rice squares, wheat squares, and cheese tidbit crackers. Now some of you guys might be thinking, oh, this is just Chex Mix, but apparently it was a lot better than that. Tidbit crackers even went on to become its own snack by itself, kind of like a guy leaving a boy band and having a really successful solo career. And finally now at number 1 we have Reese's Swoops. These were released in the 2000s and at first glance, yes, they look exactly like Pringles, but they tasted like Reese's chocolate. Each container had 3 individually sealed 6-packs of Swoops, and each piece was made of chocolate with a peanut butter squiggle on top. They were quite popular for a while. It was a bit of a novelty to see chocolate in the shape of a chip, but after the initial buzz wore off, Swoops were swept off the market in August 2006.